Hi, this is Reed Timmer with TVNweather.com, and this is a severe weather bulletin, and a much needed one because there's a very powerful, potentially devastating tropical cyclone that's headed straight for the Northwest Cape region of Australia. It's currently a Category 3 storm undergoing rapid intensification, and there could be a devastating storm surge over parts of Northwest Australia. We'll get into that a little bit later. And there's also a storm system moving across the southern U.S. that has already produced flooding rains. There's been several flood warnings. 4 to 8 inches of rain already in parts of South Texas, maybe more to come. There's flood watches now in South Texas. There's flood warnings in certain areas. Be careful on the roadways and don't attempt to drive through any standing water, especially that water that's flowing across the road, because it can easily carry your car away. First, we'll start off with a tropical cyclone, and this is Tropical Cyclone Narelle. And in Australia, they don't call them typhoons or hurricanes. Regardless of the intensity, it's still called a tropical cyclone, whether tropical storm or a hurricane. But in this case, it's a very powerful storm. And this map at right is an old satellite image, and I bet that the updated image that we see later today will have a more symmetric storm and possibly a very well-defined eye. The latest advisory had it as a Category 3 storm, but it's forecast to be a Category 4 with wind speeds of 125 knots sustained. And it's going to be maybe even a Category 5 in the next 24 hours. It's passing over very warm water. It's a very favorable environment for intensification. This right here is an experimental product that's very useful for storms like this. In hurricanes over the ocean, you have very limited real observations. That you have buoys, you have ships, you have to have hurricane hunter aircraft with drop signs to get real observations. But this is based on numerical models, interpolations, and taking all those real observations and creating a more high-resolution, comprehensive picture. But it's a representation of reality. It's not always accurate. And this simulation actually underestimated the storm by about 10 millibars in pressure. So it's a stronger storm than is indicated by the models. And that's a scary situation because the models are forecasting a Category 4 storm. And I wouldn't be surprised if this does hit Category 5 strength, maybe even later today, especially tonight. And here are the forecast track. It looks like this storm is going to be headed on a westerly track and is going to take a sharp southward turn. And if that southward motion continues, that could be very dangerous because then there's more towns potentially impacted by those Category 4 winds. It'll also remain over much warmer water temperatures for a longer period of time. But Exmouth, Onslow, all the way east to Wim Creek are right now under tropical cyclone watch, and that will likely be upgraded to a warning very soon. They're expecting 100-kilometer-per-hour winds developing by Friday morning, and very strong winds by Friday into early Saturday on that little peninsula sticking out there into Exmouth. And if I was chasing this storm, that's definitely where I'd be, waiting for it, right in the tip of that peninsula. But I'd make sure that I was above the storm surge level, because this thing could easily have 10, 15, 20-foot storm surge depending on its exact track. And this shows the sea surface temperatures that the storm is moving over and why it's such a dangerous storm. Right now it's over temperatures, sea surface temperatures in the upper 80s near 90. And this is a very dangerous situation. But that blue line there shows the ISO line that represents the 80-degree Fahrenheit sea surface temperature. And below 80 degrees, typically hurricane or tropical storms, tropical cyclones weaken. But when the water temperature is 80 degrees and above, that's sufficient for them to intensify. And especially if this storm wobbles a little bit to the east, it's going to remain over very warm water that's approaching 90 degrees, even up to the coast. And that could mean the difference between a landfall of a Category 4 or Category 5 storm or a Category 3 storm if it wobbles a little bit to the west and then misses land altogether, which is the best case scenario. But still, this is going to cause problems for the Northwest Cape region of Australia. And now for the system in the southern U.S., this so far has been a rainmaker. We need the rain down here in the southern plains, but we don't need flash flooding. And a lot of times in the spring when we get rain, they're associated with tornadoes. Today's tornado threat could be 0, but it also could be pretty substantial. It's all dependent on if the warm front that's currently over the Gulf of Mexico lifts up over land. And if that happens, then there will be substantial wind shear and instability for tornadoes. And here's a depiction of that wind shear. This is the NAM model forecast for late morning to early afternoon. This is the NAM is predicting 850 millibar winds at left of 50 knots. That's called the low-level jet stream, and that's what contributes to that very strong wind shear. And the graph on the right is what's called a hodograph. And when you get that big meat hook shaped hodograph, that large curvature, the area inside there is what defines helicity. And helicity is a measure of wind shear. And the larger area you have, especially if you have that really long low level shear vector. So that one that has a 10 next to it, that's the surface wind, which is basically out of the east-southeast at 10 knots. That's right along the warm front. I picked a location that was near the warm front and also co-located with the low-level jet. And that's where I expect that the highest tornado threat is, right near the coast, probably the Texas-Louisiana border eastward. There definitely could be some tornado producers, especially if that warm front lifts north. And for that reason, the Storm Prediction Center has put out a 2% risk for tornadoes. It extends pretty far north, and I would probably increase the probabilities down near the coast because that warm front's just offshore. And if that lifts just a little bit north, there could be several tornado warnings today. So definitely stay tuned to watch the warnings if you live near the coast, from even Corpus Christi all the way to Baton Rouge, with the largest threat from the Beaumont, Texas area to Lake Charles to Lafayette. And it all depends on the northward progression of that warm front. And if that warm front lifts north, we'll definitely be releasing severe weather bulletins throughout the day. And we will tonight, too, as more information comes in on this tropical cyclone.
We gotta get it! Cover me with something!